Can you tell us a little bit about how the monument came to be to pair with the historic works?
So I was researching Ted Shawn in graduate school, and I said to my advisor, like, oh wow, you know, these solos are so interesting. I would love to reconstruct them and perform them. And then 2 weeks later, I got an email from the Museum of Modern Art saying, we got your email address from Andre Lepecki, and we'd like to invite you to reconstruct and reperform these solos in the museum. So he gets an A+ as an advisor. And you know, I'm just so fascinated by the questions he was asking and asking those questions today and seeing what answers might arise.
Logan, it was so beautiful to see Doris Humphrey's work again, and I'm so amazed at how much happens just standing in place. Well, it's just such incredible virtuosity, so I just want to acknowledge that was just such a great addition to this whole program. And you're the sole woman in this men legacy, so you know the legacy's changing, yeah, so that is just so great to have that. How did you get involved in this project?
Well, I met Adam at Juilliard in 2004, so I guess that's where it all started for the two of us. But we've worked together for a very long time and have a very close working relationship. And actually, when he was getting ready to do these solos at MoMA, he was like, "Can you help me? Like, can you be my outside eye?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, totally." I spend a lot of time in my life looking at old videos of dance. You know, when you're in a rep company that's working on historic work, that's kind of part of what you do all of the time. So we worked together on that, and actually kind of fiddled around a couple of summers ago, and we have a duet version. So we had a little lineage program together. So Ted Shawn, Doris Humphrey, José Limón, they kind of follow that dance family lineage.
You're new to this project because I haven't seen you before, and yeah. You dance the old-time religion.
Totally.
And you're an actor. You're a very diverse performer. So
yes.
Tell us about entering that piece.
It was really interesting because he taught us all four, just kind of to bring us all together, and it's such a short little piece, but it's kind of running the gamut of like all of these different sorts of praising, I feel. I feel there's a touch of ecstasy, there's a touch of kindness, and then celebration. And it was really interesting because I was interested in why it was number 3 out of 4, and what that meant in the rest of those 4 solos. And because from what I understand is these 4 solos were kind of a deal for Ted to go cross-country on Amtrak with the promise of performing all 4 solos at every train stop. So I'm like, whoa, you can't do that anymore. And like, I remember watching the video like the 14th time in one day, and I realized that he cued the music. It was like, poof. I was like, I got it. So it's always, I really, really like to find details of things. And when it's being reconstructed, it's trying to find that architecture that still exists and trusting that I'll pull through.
I want to hear how you think about the way the historic work is presented in the beginning with these wonderful lights and all of us in light with you.
There were a couple of points of inspiration for the set and lighting, and I think the first one being that all of these solos were filmed on campus, and the back wall, when it's standing, is almost a replica of the back wall of the film. And on the film you can see they have lots of little shadows behind them, so there must have been footlights on the floor. So that's kind of where we started. The other point of inspiration was, and I was originally asked to perform these solos in a museum space. Museums more and more are kind of pretending to be theaters. So I wanted to flip that on its head and kind of turn the theater into a museum. So the lighting, it's like an archival space. We took photos of the lighting at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, where a lot of his archives live. Part of the moving wall was inspired by those moving stacks that you see in libraries. So we wanted to create an archival space, and also knowing that we were going to be performing in this theater, which is very much a theater, but it's also one big room. And we wanted to acknowledge that the audience is in the same room that we're in, and we're all in here together. And it took us a little bit by surprise. I don't think I realized how visible the audience would be throughout. It's a little bit, it's like Inside Out.
Logan, how was it for you to be performing these very theatrical works in these bright lights? How was that for you guys?
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I would say it's a challenge. We kept saying, "Can you turn the music up louder? Can you turn the music up louder?" Because you wanted to feel like you had a partner out there, kind of.
There's this interesting kind of homage to, I think, Ted and his men dancers in building their spaces that I think, like, it's this kind of really wonderful visual narrative of building a wall, placing it up, and then seeing the finished product that I just love so much about this piece.
As part of Adam's research, he did go to work on a farm, and all the dancers I saw on Facebook were working on a farm. Can you talk a little bit about some of your embodied research?
Sure. Well, as part of the original reconstruction process, I tried to recreate their training practices. So I thought one way to kind of get embodied knowledge was to do what they did. And in Barton Mumaw's memoir, he describes their day, which involved farm work and a couple of hours of nude sunbathing and some rehearsing. I mean, it was a very self-indulgent research process.
Can you tell us about the authenticity of the sound?
Yes, absolutely. We used the recordings that were made. The films were filmed, silent film. I think this is interesting, actually. It was filmed with a hand crank camera. So the timing isn't completely even. And they're silent films, but Jess Meeker, the original accompanist, did play to the film to create an audio track that would accompany the DVD. But what I think is interesting is that, so the hand crank was uneven, but then the piano is scored to the uneven filming, which is then written into the choreography because we're dancing to that score. So I think it's one of these traces of the mediation that happens as we're kind of channeling through this media to get at what he was after.
And I love the way Chris incorporated. He was speaking at some point. Were those notes that he was speaking, or what was that? It was
Sure.
great.
So a lot of the music that we used in Act 2 came from the score that Jess Meeker wrote to accompany Ted Shawn's technique class.
Oh, okay.
So Ann Hutchinson Guest, who Laban notated his technique class, which we reconstructed and studied, is narrating the exercises. And so her voice is heard in some of the tracks, and then Chris is reading some of her lines later, and then Logan takes over.
This is a question about the sound and the dance of Monument, and it is kind of epic. It does, and the music does have an epic feel to it, especially at the end. You're like, whoa, yeah, very. You know, it has quite a build. But tell us.
We worked very closely. He came to all of our rehearsals practically, and he recorded our footsteps so that he could overlay that into the score. You know, Logan no longer does. She used to have a solo about taking all the pins out of her hair, because it's quite an elaborate hairdo she has in Act 1. And so he took the sound of the pins falling from her hair, and that made its way into the last track. And he took a lot of his own lyrics and played them backwards, which to him was about this idea about looking back in time. So I think it was a very nice kind of collaboration in that way. And I've been a big fan of his for a long time.